The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Hey everyone, producer Pat here. Good to be with you on this Friday bonus show. So I thought today, since we didn't get to discuss the Trump and Biden town halls on the regular show, I would discuss them with you here now. So very interesting night. I saw both events. Trump's town hall took place on NBC and Biden's town hall took place on ABC. And they started at the same time, but then Biden's went another half an hour, 45 minutes longer. Of course, last night was supposed to be debate night, but then, of course, we learned that Trump tested positive for COVID-19, and he may have been able to make it, but I think they were just concerned about everyone else around him, the Secret Service, the people who work by Trump's side. Maybe they now have coronavirus, and they could be like an unsuspecting case that could cause the debate to be some sort of hotspot, a sort of super spreader event. So they didn't want to do that, and they wanted to do a virtual debate. And at that point, Trump pulled out because he thought that optically a virtual debate with him recently having coronavirus would look really, really bad. So instead, they went with these town halls. And, I'm happy about it because I don't think these town halls are going to have a major effect on the race at all. I think in order to have an effect on the race at this point, you need like some major story to come out or some big moment in a debate. And there's only one debate left now. But still, interesting night, and I thought I'd show you some clips. So, of course, number one, we're going to talk about the coronavirus. That's the top issue in the country. All of these events should be leading off with the topic of the coronavirus because that's what's affecting the most amount of people, both with public health and with the economy. And a audience member asked Trump, now that you've had COVID, has your perspective changed on the virus? Do you think people should now wear masks? And Trump went into a diatribe about how some people say not to wear the mask, and we've rounded the turn, as he says. So let's go into that clip.
Has your opinion changed on the importance of mask wearing?
No, because I was okay with the masks. I was good with it, but I've heard many different stories on masks. I mean, I had, being president, you have people, they bring meals, they bring this, and I had an instance recently where a very wonderful person is bringing me a meal, and he's playing with his mask, and he's touching his mask all over the place, and then he's bringing a plate in, and I'm saying, well, I don't know if that's so good. I mean, the good news, I didn't eat it, okay? I decided not to eat it. This was a month ago. But look, you have on the masks, you have two stories. You have a story where they want, a story where they don't want. I am all for it.
I don't get that because it's just all of your public health officials, your administration, they're in unison about this. No. They're all in unison about it. The University of Washington, which is they have a model that your coronavirus task force relies on, says that if everyone wore a mask, you could cut expected deaths in half.
And then you have other people that disagree.
Well, what does that mean?
Scott Atkins, if you look at Scott, Dr. Scott, he's from great guy, Stanford. He will tell you that he disagrees with you.
He's not an infectious disease expert.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, not a good look there for Donald Trump, especially because the vast majority of Americans support these social distancing measures. They support wearing masks. They're wearing masks themselves when they go out in public spaces, in indoor spaces. And, you're not going to pick up anyone new by saying something like this. You got to workshop a better answer. I suppose it's also not the best look for him to say, yeah, since getting coronavirus myself, my perspective has changed because now I know how bad it is and now I know it can kill people. And so, yeah, I've totally flip-flopped on the mask now. Like, doing something like that also wouldn't be very good because then it would just seem like, why does it take you personally getting it to affect your position on this? Why can't you just empathize with other people? So that also wouldn't be the best look, but you can come up with something, right? I don't think Donald Trump gave a satisfactory answer here, and he clearly doesn't prepare for these things. Contrast that to Joe Biden, who was asked a question about whether or not an economic recovery and dealing with the virus effectively are at odds, if they're like two different sides of a scale or a seesaw or whatever, if you have to choose one or the other. And I thought it's a pretty tough question, but Biden did a good job at answering it.
And how can you contain the pandemic without crushing the economy?
Well, you can contain the pandemic by being rational and not crush the economy. For example, I laid out a plan how you can open businesses. You can open businesses and schools if, in fact, you provide them the guidance that they need as well as the money to be able to do it. What's happening now is we know, for example, if you can open a business and you could have a sign on the door saying safe to come in, that's why people aren't going anyway even when they're open, and say because you have social distancing, you have plastic barriers when you go to the cashier, you have separators between the booths, you don't have large crowds, you reduce the size, the number of people you can have in the restaurant, you make sure there's testing. That's a really critical piece that he didn't do, testing and tracing. And you make sure that people are equipped, going to schools. you know, the government initially said they were going to provide masks for every student and every teacher. Then they said, no. FEMA said that the president or whomever said, no, that's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. We need more teachers in our schools to be able to open smaller pods. We need ventilation systems changed. There's a lot of things we know now.
Now back to the Trump town hall. So Samantha Guthrie at one point asked Trump if he denounces white supremacy, because of course Trump has been reluctant to do so in the past. After the first debate, that was the big headline, that Trump didn't denounce white supremacy, and he placates to groups like the Proud Boys and these different alt-right groups, and he dog whistles. And so we just needed a flat-out yes or no answer from Trump. And to his credit, Trump did say, yes, I denounce white supremacy, so that's good to hear. Score one for Trump, right? Well, not so fast, because then Samantha Guthrie asks, okay, well, since we're on the topic of denouncing, do you denounce QAnon, which is, of course, the conspiracy group that alleges that Democrats are running a pedophile ring, and Trump just plays coy with it, talks about how he doesn't know QAnon, and this is probably the highlight of the entire town hall. Let's check out that clip.
While we're denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true and that disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is a satanic cult run by the deep state.
Study the subject. I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left, and I know how violent they are and how vicious they are, and I know how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by Republicans.
Republican Senator Ben Sass said, quote, QAnon is nuts, and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories.
He may be
Why
right.
not just say it's crazy and not true?
He may be right. I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
I absolutely love that tone there by Samantha Guthrie. You do know, because of course Trump does know. He sounds like some sort of kid who got caught red-handed doing something stupid and doesn't know how to explain himself out of it. So Samantha Guthrie taking him to task there. And, this I don't know them excuse, like that could work maybe the first time when we're all first hearing about and learning about QAnon. If he's asked that at a press conference, then okay, you can respond with I don't know them. But then you got to follow up and you got to give your statement on it. And, we've heard about QAnon for years now. Trump should be able to give an answer, but of course he doesn't want to turn them away. So he's trying to play coy with it, and it's just not working anymore. Everyone sees through it. So while they're talking about that over during the Trump town hall, during the Biden town hall, they're actually talking about policy. They're talking about tax policy. Joe Biden has been asked, hey, so you say that you're not going to raise taxes on middle-class families, but you want to repeal the Trump tax cuts. How does that square? You're going to raise taxes. And this is how Biden responded. Again, a normal political event, a normal political situation, and a normal question and answer from Joe Biden.
What is your plan for either extending the tax cuts for the middle class or creating a new plan that further reduces those taxes?
I carry this card with me. When I said the Trump tax cuts, about $1.3 trillion of the $2 trillion in his tax cuts went to the top 1/10 of 1%. That's what I'm talking about eliminating, not all the tax cuts that are out there. And by the way, if you just take a look, we reduced the corporate tax rate from 35%, and Democrats and Republicans who were in office thought it should come down to 28%. He reduced it to 21%. You have 91 out of every of the Fortune 500 companies not paying a single solitary penny. If you raise the corporate tax just back to 28%, which is a fair tax, you'd raise $1.3 trillion by that one act.
Back at the Trump town hall, they were talking about the New York Times bombshell tax return story. and how Trump is in debt $400 million, and we don't know who he's in debt to. And Trump here, if you listen to this answer, it's all over the place. He says it's fake what the New York Times did. It's also illegal what the New York Times did. And yes, he is in debt $400 million, but somehow it's a good thing. So how any of this squares, I have no idea, but I'll leave it to you to decide.
Of taxes. As you know, the New York Times has obtained, it says, years of your tax returns. Among other things, it says that you have debts of approximately $421 million that you have personally guaranteed and that will come due in the next 4 years. The question is, on behalf of voters, who do you owe $421 million to?
First of all, let me answer. What they did is illegal, number one. Also, the numbers are all wrong with the numbers they released. And just so you understand, when you have a lot of real estate, I have real estate, you know a lot of it, okay? Right down the road, Doral, big stuff, great stuff. When I decided to run, I'm very under-levered, fortunately, but I'm very under-levered. I have a very, very small percentage of debt compared, in fact, some of it I did as favors to institutions that wanted to loan me money. $400 million compared to the assets that I have, all of these great properties all over the world.
Meanwhile, back at the Joe Biden town hall, Joe Biden got a question about race issues, about what he can do for Black Americans. They went over his record on race during the town hall, which is admittedly a mixed record. But he got a question from one of the audience members, and when Biden was done giving his answer, George Stephanopoulos stepped in and asked the voter, did he answer your question? And the audience member kind of shrugged, said, yeah, he kind of did. And I thought Joe Biden did a really good job at capitalizing on this opportunity to try to connect with the voter, to try to sympathize, continued talking to him, said we can talk later about this. And that's just all very good stuff. I mean, it shows that he can sympathize with people. He has human intelligence. I mean, Trump's just not good at that stuff. And it can win people over, you know. In 1992, one of the big reasons why Bill Clinton was able to beat George H.W. Bush was because he was much more charismatic and much more sympathetic. He could talk to people in a way that just seemed like you knew that he cared about them. And Biden does have some of that quality in him, too. So I thought this was a really good moment for him.
If you, in fact, and I were the same age, and we split our differences and we were the same age, and we went to the same builder to buy us each the same home. But my home was in a white neighborhood on one side of a highway, and yours is in a black neighborhood. Same exact home. Your home will start off being valued 29% less than my home. Yet your insurance for that home will be higher. You'll be taxed more for it. We've got to end this. That's what got me involved in politics in the first place, a thing called redlining. We can change so much, that we can do so much to change the circumstances to give people a real opportunity.
Cedric, did you hear what you needed?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, do you hear what you needed to hear?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot more if you're going to hang around afterwards. I'll tell you more.
Okay.
Let's get
No, but I really mean it. It is the key. Look, this is the way every other. How do most, like my dad? He lost his job up in Scranton, and it took him 3 years to be able. He moved down to Delaware, to Claymont, Delaware, a little steel town, and sent us home to our grandpop to live with him. We finally got back. We lived in apartments, became 6 and 8 housing. Much later it wasn't. It was just normal apartments. But it took him 5 years to be able to buy a home. Well, we bought a 3-bedroom home with 4 kids and a grandpop living with us, but it accumulated wealth. You built up wealth. That's how middle-class folks make it. They build up wealth.
So there you go. Those were the 2 town halls. Really interesting night. I don't think it's going to have any effect whatsoever on the election results. I don't think people are going to be persuaded by this at all, much like last week's VP debate. You know, people watch it. They have their opinions. There's some headlines after it, but I don't think it's going to change anyone's minds. The opportunity to do that may come next week if indeed we have a final presidential debate, and I'm looking forward to that. So it's going to be a big couple of weeks. We're in the thick of it now. We're almost there, only about 2.5 weeks away. And I'm voting early. I'm voting tomorrow, in fact. And hopefully that process goes smoothly. Make sure you have your plan to vote. And we'll be back with you next week for more content.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.